Today on Week in Review, a pair of local politicians spoke on the ongoing trade war. We have a closer look at how Rio Tinto will be impacted by aluminum tariffs, and we'll see how the latest Northwestern cold spurt is affecting the vulnerable. Hello, I'm Cael Maslin, and thank you for joining us here on Week in Review, where we cover all of the news here in the Northwest from this past week. A couple of local politicians stopped by the CFTK-TV studios in order to discuss the ongoing trade war between Canada and the United States, along with some other issues that they look to tackle here in the Northwest. CFTK-TV's Damian Smith reports.
Just announced today, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that 25% tariffs will be implemented on Canadian aluminum and steel products. And this is an ongoing story, and there is much to twist and turn over the next month or so, as tomorrow will mark 1 week into the 30-day break on American imports into Canada. And Ellis Ross stopped by CFTK-TV to discuss some of this matter and how surprised he is from this development.
The one thing I thought about is that he's going to do what he says what he means what he says. And I didn't look for logic in it. I was thinking, okay, we better prepare. It's something different to watch because he's not a normal politician. He's a businessman. But what kind of a politician, I think the next 4 years is going to tell us.
However, Ross notes that the average Canadian is much more of a patriot in this current moment and that it's the highest it has been in years.
And I think this is a real chance to us to reimagine what Canadians are going to be looking at for the next 4, 10, 20, 30 years. And maybe we have to get back to the principles that Canada was founded on in the first place. Freedom, democracy, economy, free enterprise. I think we lost sight of those principles over the last 10 years.
Taylor Bachrach also spoke his thoughts on this story last week on CFTK-TV, but in local news, he is looking to keep pushing the Red Dress Alert initiative towards the BC and federal government.
We have a lot of work to do as communities, as society, to stop gender-based violence against women and children. It's a huge problem. We need political will. We need action. And the Red Dress Alert is one of those steps.
A Red Dress Alert was put into place in Manitoba this past spring, and Bachrach says that he has people signing postcards to the federal Minister of Public Safety to bring this initiative one step closer.
To put that technology in place and to get it working, to have the conversations with the organizations that work on that issue, organizations like Tears to Hope right here in Terrace and Prince Rupert working in this region, and put together the protocols and the systems that would allow that Red Dress Alert to function.
And the Red Dress Alert is a proposed system to notify the public when an Indigenous woman, girl, or two-spirit person goes missing. From CFTK-TV, I'm Damian Smith.
With aluminum tariffs likely having direct implications in Kitimat as Rio Tinto is a major employer, CTV's Rob Buffum looked into what this means for the district.
It's the lifeblood of Kitimat, the Rio Tinto aluminum smelter that employs 1,000 workers in a town of just 8,000 and is now in the crosshairs of President Trump's threatened tariffs.
Single largest and most stable employer for over 70 years here. And it's not just Kitimat. They'd have a major impact on, of course, the region and even the province as a whole.
Trump signed executive orders yesterday to impose 25% tariffs on both steel and aluminum, set to kick in March 12th. This smelter produces up to 420,000 tons of aluminum a year, most of it shipped to the United States. Rio Tinto, the company that owns the smelter, is actively pursuing alternative markets, likely in Asia. But convincing Trump to walk back the tariffs is the best short-term goal, says the mayor.
People are concerned, of course, not panicking, but just concerned about the effect this might have.
A point the Prime Minister says he hopes to hammer home.
Working with the American administration over the coming weeks to highlight the negative impacts on Americans and Canadians. If it comes to that, our response, of course, will be firm and clear.
All premiers, including David Eby, are meeting in Washington, D.C. Wednesday, trying to persuade U.S. decision makers to back off these and other tariffs.
For the Americans, we know that they can only produce about 1.5 million tons of aluminum. And their demand for aluminum is more than 5 million tons a year.
We just have to get our message out about we're stronger together. That's the message we want to deliver to the American people and to the elected officials down here.
A message those living in a BC town founded to support an aluminum smelter anxiously hopes gets through in the next month. Robert Buffum, CTV News.
Ellis Ross attended the Junior All-Nata basketball tournament and shared more of his thoughts on the effect of Trump's aluminum tariffs that they could have on Kitimat.
Well, it will affect the Kitimat. Rio Tinto Alcan, formerly known as Alcan, was the main reason why Kitimat existed in the first place. Alcan actually built the town of Kitimat before they became a municipality. But really what we got to do, and everybody's been talking about this, they've been talking for years, we have to diversify our economy. We have to diversify our trade. We got to reopen trading partners with the rest of the world. We're talking about Germany, Italy, China, India. I mean, it's great to have a huge trading partner in the United States, but if you focus all your trade in just one partner, you're basically susceptible to what's happening now under Trump. So I think we got to diversify our trade.
It was said at a post on their Facebook page by the City of Terrace that they would have their planning staff and some planning consultants walking throughout the downtown area throughout the previous week. The given reason for the walkaround is that all of those people would be assessing both commercial and residential buildings in order to identify potential opportunities to increase residential housing. The city has said that they are aware of the housing-related challenges that many are facing, which is why they are also working with a company called Urban Systems, who has been hired to conduct a zoning and commercial demand analysis that should further enlighten discussions surrounding land policy use changes that can possibly end up supporting future downtown terrace housing options. The Our Community Plan update section of the city's website is home to more information. Terrace's RCMP say an investigation into manufacturing firearms has led to one arrest. The police say the investigation led to a search warrant at an undisclosed location that also led to 2 people being taken into custody. Items that officers found during their search included several 3D printed firearms and silencers, some counterfeit currency, substantial quantities of what was suspected to be pharmaceutical drugs, as well as a few other tools used to build firearms. Both individuals got released, one of which had a court date and conditions related to the offense, and the RCMP will be forwarding their investigation results to the Crown Council for charge considerations. The city of Prince Rupert has publicly reported that they have begun seeking consultation from Japanese Canadian residents so that they can use their advice on a new project. Thanks to funding being given to them by the Japanese Canadian Legacy Society, the city is set to install a memorial in Mariners Park to honor the Japanese Canadians that were removed from Prince Rupert by force and put in internment camps. The city is hosting an engagement event on February 26 at the Museum in Northern BC from 4 to 7 p.m. in order to make sure they also properly recognize the pre- and post-war contributions of Japanese Canadians. Up next, a major business sale in Canada is on track to happen. Welcome back. In business news, a major sale is currently on the path to get done sometime in the near future between a pair of major media companies in Canada.
Vista Radio has recently gotten public approval from the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission to officially purchase 21 radio stations as well as 27 regional repeater transmitters from Bell Media. Outside of stations in Victoria and Vancouver, this means that Vista is on track to own every other radio station in the entirety of British Columbia, including both CFTK Terrace as well as CJFW FM in Terrace, and the 8 total transmitters for said station that have been placed throughout the Northwest. The official price tag for Vista's purchase of these stations is set at $3,036,000, and some of the other stations in the Northwest that are joining Vista as well include the likes of Prince Rupert's CHTK-FM, Kitimat CKTK-FM, and CJDC in Dawson Creek. Every little detail about the sale that is publicly available to this point can be found in the business section of the CRTC's website. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cael Maslin.
We now look towards a story about the latest cold spurt that we've had here in the Northwest and how the risk of freezing, frostbite, and hypothermia can become real threats to the vulnerable and unhoused. Cael Maslin of CFTK-TV spoke with outreach workers to see how they've been faring.
When the weather turns cold like this, shelter becomes essential. And for those without a fixed address, the situation is life and death.
And we definitely see an increase in the numbers of people experiencing homelessness. There is a misconception that folks are being brought in from other communities, the Lower Mainland. That's simply not true. When people are coming from outside of Terrace, they're coming from the region. So they're coming from those smaller communities that Terrace already services. And a lot of the people that are now starting to access shelters or even access our food services are folks that have lived in Terrace, are living in Terrace, and they're just being squeezed out, essentially.
Outreach worker Angie Brown says the lack of second stage and available low-income housing creates huge barriers to actually getting people off the streets.
You know, if anybody would just sit down with them, you'd be able to talk all day long. Like, they're really good people and they're just lost. They just need to get back up on their feet. As long as you're there beside them and not standing over them and everything like that, you know, like everybody would be, I would say everybody would have a different perspective of our people that are on the street.
A temporary winter shelter has been operating at Casan's Turning Point's location in Terrace this season, providing 10 extra beds for the winter.
We are using the Cael's shelter, the temporary winter shelter, as an overnight only shelter. It's also an overflow option for us. So if an individual is seeking shelter and they're able to access the Southside shelters, we will find them transportation to get them there.
Brown mentioned that losses in the past few years have been significant.
We have a big family. Like we don't call everybody that's on the street just like our clients. They're our friends, they're our family, and you know, we build a very close relationship, so it really hits deep when this happens. It happened too many times. You know, like, you don't leave your dog outside. Why can't we bring our people in when it's freezing? Why does it have to be minus freaking 8 before we open up a warming center? Why does it have to be like freezing? What about the rain? That rain, like, you're soaking wet. Even if it's not -8, if it's -2 and you're soaked, you're gonna freeze. Why do we have to wait until tragedy hits before we help anybody?
The temporary winter shelter will remain open for overflow needs until March 31st. For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Cael Maslin.
A daytime emergency warming shelter was open in Terrace during the previous weekend. The shelter opened at the Cael Turning Points building from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and provided a safe, warm drop-in space for people unable to access safe shelter during extreme weather. The temperature and wind chill over that time frame met the threshold for the city to access funding to work with community partners to open the emergency warming shelter. The warming shelter doesn't replace any existing overnight shelters or programs. Casan's Vicky Serafini says things have been going well, but they are in need of some particular donations.
Something that we do need are hand warmers, mitts, gloves, and hats. And another thing that we've been sort of struggling with is providing additional food services through the shelters. With the rising cost of everything, we're definitely feeling that in our food programming, and we're less able to provide additional food for folks that are staying with us, snacks and whatnot. So if people want to donate snacks, that would be super helpful. We also have community groups sometimes making sandwiches and dropping them off for us, and that's really appreciated.
After the government of BC recently announced that they'd be fast-tracking the development and approval of 2 major mines, the Tahltan First Nation expressed their thoughts on that subject. The nation was displeased by the government not consulting them about either the SK Creek Revitalization Project or the Red Chris mine expansion that will be happening on their territory. The nation said that the decision was also made despite the fact that the 2 parties have several formal joint decision-making agreements in place to ensure that they discuss future mine-related matters. After the break is a profile of year 65 of the all-native basketball tourney. Welcome back. It's that time of year where the all-native basketball tournament is being put on in the city of Prince Rupert, and CFTK-TV's Damian Smith recently attended to get a closer look at this year's edition.
Well, we are here at the Jim Saccone Arena in Prince Rupert for the fourth day of the all-native basketball tournament.
And this year marked number 65 in the tournament's history, with a total of 62 teams coming up and down British Columbia and parts of Alaska. This tournament continues to be a focal point around the Northwest, with a sense of stability among those who run it. And that includes Eva Spencer, who is one of 12 people on the all-native board.
The judges or the scorekeepers, security, all the different positions that involve in this tournament committee. Each committee member has their own position. So once everybody's position is done, then the tournament's ready to go.
Spencer also described the event being like a second Christmas to the Prince Rupert community, where hotels and restaurants can see much needed business. And for Mayor Herb Pond, who notes that sports is not all about scores and plays on the court.
I was at the opening ceremonies, as I often am, and it just is heartwarming to see these teams come piling in from all across the province and from Alaska. So up and down the coast, over to, up inland from us, over to Haida Gwaii and up to Heidelberg, Alaska. All coming in, bringing their culture, and of course bringing the game of basketball.
Now, this is a week-long tournament with high demand, and it has now become a part of entertainment in the Northwest.
If there wasn't a hunger out there up and down the coast to come and participate and be part of that exchange, I mean, there is real competitive basketball and at the same time, a real camaraderie.
Ellis Ross also stopped by, who coached this team from Kitimat, starting the tournament 1-0 after the team not playing together for over 20 years.
Coming here for fellowship. There's a lot of friendly people here, a lot of happy people. You got a really loud crowd cheering for their home team. You got the Arts and Crafts Center and the food, and you got all the booths set up. So a lot of people here come in, you have a good time. I've never come in here and had a negative experience in my life.
Now, there are still 3 more days of the tournament left over, with the semifinals on Friday and the finals for all 5 divisions on Saturday. From CFTK-TV, I'm Damian Smith.
The city of Prince Rupert announced that they were in the early stages of developing what they called a recreation and wellness plan. The reported purpose of this plan will be to assist in guiding the delivery of recreation services for the city, in addition to connecting local recreation and wellness offerings. The city is seeking the input of their citizens so their project team can get a better sense of how local sports, recreation, and culture looks in the community. The survey is available on the City of Prince Rupert's website. The City of Prince Rupert also recently announced that they were adopting a climate change adaptation plan, which is a plan that takes a look at future climate trends that are specific to the Prince Rupert area. The plan was put together by the Sustainability Solutions Group and was created after gathering input from various Prince Rupert community groups, emergency services, businesses, environmental nonprofits, as well as individual residents. This plan is also set to serve as a complement to Prince Rupert's community energy and emissions plan that they adopted back in 2017, and the new climate change plan can be viewed on the city's website as well. The Kitimat RCMP posted in their latest weekly reports that went over events that happened during the first few days of February. The most prominent part of the report talked about how a person came to the police in person and said that they had been duped by a caller who was pretending to be their bank. The victim then ended up spending a sum of money on non-existent gift cards, and this case is being used as an example to be careful about giving out your banking information. The town of Smithers is offering local residents the chance to give their 2 cents on the draft version of the Smithers Community Heritage Register. Next week, on Wednesday the 19th, people can drop by the Bulkley Valley Museum and take a look at the register that lists off several properties that are getting recognition for having either heritage value or character. It's being used as an educational tool, and the museum has partnered up with the town in order to see that it gets fully completed. Still to come, a farmers market in the Northwest could get some major recognition. Welcome back. The Northwest Regional Airport recently set out a public release of their latest statistics that they had collected throughout the first month of 2025. The airport saw 17,177 customers make their way through their location during the month of January 2025, which was down a bit from the 19,461 passengers that appeared in January 2024. 2025's number was even lower than the 17,975 people that the airport counted in January of 2023 as well. Although the frigid cold can be wearying, there is one benefit to the temperatures sitting well below freezing for quite some time. Lake Cael's Lake and Terrace is one of many ponds and lakes in the Northwest that completely froze over and became the ideal surface for skating. Locals flocked to the massive outdoor rink over the previous weekend, where the sunshine made for the picturesque views and some spectacular blue skies. The ice surface was rough and white near to the edge, but did become black and perfectly smooth further out. Temperatures are expected to stay cold throughout all this past week, likely preserving the ice for a while, but just as a reminder, the minimum ice thickness you need to be able to skate or walk on it is 4 inches or 10.5 centimeters. And that's clear for black ice, white, or snowy ice isn't as strong, and you'll want to double those measurements to ensure safety. It's also important to watch out for any ice fishing holes or cracks as well. Testing the ice can be done by drilling into it or using an ice chisel. After all of the nominations were officially sent in, the 2024 BC Farmers Market Awards could potentially end up giving serious recognition to a farmers market here in the north. The Skeena Valley Farmers Market has been nominated for the award that recognizes the large farmers market that had the greatest community impact in the entirety of the province, and is in the running alongside the Duncan Farmers Market and the New West Farmers Market. The winner of that award, along with all of the other ones as well, is set to be announced during what will be an online award ceremony on Zoom that is set to be held on March 4th. The award winners are set to be evaluated and then chosen by a panel of BC Farmers Market collaborators. The City of Terrace recently announced that they've gotten a new statue on Ferry Island. The statue was made in the shape of a salmon. It was placed on the island's trail network by the Terrace Community Forest. The iron artwork was installed on a large rock located at the base of the brand new Dudley Little Bridge on the campground's north end, and was designed and created by Steve Rogers of Great Bear Ironworks. The president of the BC General Employees Union said the government needs to be careful with its planned hiring freeze in the face of tariff threats from U.S. President Donald Trump. Paul Finch stated that people in the civil service have important functions that are needed to keep key economic projects running in the face of the tariff dispute. Finance Minister Brenda Bailey recently announced a hiring freeze, which affects BC's public service, including people who work within the government ministries and directly for the ministries, though she said some core positions would not be affected. Bailey also said the province is preparing for 4 years of unpredictability from the United States. That wraps up this week's edition of Week in Review. Make sure to tune into our regular newscast on Monday at 5, 6, and 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have a good weekend.